Hi, I don't want to ruin the introduction, but we decided to join our talks in the interest of time. Um, and so this is Alice Conegus, and I'm going first, and then David will follow. We've been working quite closely together. And so anyway, let me go, and then you can speak to my bio afterwards, but just in the interest of time. So we have two rapid projects, both of them funded by NSF within the SIZE or Computations Directorate, and they're both dealing with computational modeling of wildfires. The particular one that I'm on is more with an emphasis on human activity, escape routes, and other actions. And also, we're interested in quick models of fire. And that's the reason why we've joined forces, because David's project is more in high performance computing modeling of fires, and mine is more based on the types of models that you could do and perhaps even hopefully someday send to your handheld device, either if you're fighting the fire or if you're a person trying to escape from the fire. The project that I'm working on is in collaboration with Maui College students who are also working with Dave, because we're doing similar data collection, and the students are shown here. We're also collaborating a lot with Professor Blamey, who's here on Maui, teaching data science to students. And then finally, my project is also coordinated with ASU and also with Professor Andrea Bertozzi at UCLA. Next slide. So basically, what we're trying to do is a kind of a four-pronged approach to how we can mitigate the damages from the fire. So we've been looking at how to model evacuation, actually traffic models, because as you all know, a lot of traffic was stuffed up. And so we've gone on the ground. We have a good model going already of the traffic trying to get out and what could potentially be done to improve that situation. We've got a second model using computational ODEs that has, for example, people as agents, and the agents in the model try to escape various things, but it also takes into consideration, how they might react. So it's more than just a computational model of where to go, but it's also how they might act. We've got a small effort on remote sensing. And then finally, a lot of our modeling is to do rapid computation using level sets. And what we want to do is verify and validate that data with the HPC models that will be discussed in David's project. Along with all this, because there wasn't enough data to accurately determine exactly where the fire was, the reason for this is that the internet went down around 6 a.m. or so, and the power went out very early for many of the places that were affected by the fire. And so there's not really that much sensor data or other data to tell about where the fire was at various times during the day. So to mitigate that issue of data collection, we've got this site, Maui Fire Research, where we've been collecting images. The students from Maui College have been instrumental in helping us collect those images. And the students are also going to be active in visualization, but David will talk about that part. Anyway, here's the data collection spot. And then finally, just the idea of how the level sets are used. The idea is that when you're trying to evacuate from, say, a fire or a natural disaster, including a tsunami and all that, the fastest way down, the fastest path may not be applicable to all people. If you can't get down a steep mountain and you're trying to evacuate from, say, Yosemite where there's a fire, the straightest path down might be fine if you're a mountain climber. But, if you're an elderly person or a disabled person, you might have to take a different path. And so the idea is to include the people in the evacuation models. And that's what this slide, and then I'll hand it over to David.
All right. So now we're kind of seeing where HPC can kind of enter the play. Uh, and so this picture on the right, um, oh, you're echoing. Um, the is the Lahaina at the situation where in purple are all the buildings that were destroyed. Those that aren't familiar with Lahaina, so on the west side of Maui, there's a bypass road that had a lot of down power lines that caused evacuation problems, very relevant to Alice. Uh, but in any case, we know approximately where the fire started. It was around here. I'll show you a simulation shortly. Uh, and then the idea is that when you put in all the structures of the town, can we predict what happened given the wind situations? As it was mentioned, we're involving Maui College students, but also for the wind data, we're using a very nice high performance computing model from the National Center for Atmospheric Research called NCAR. I'll talk a little more about that. We're also collaborating with folks at the University of Nevada at Reno and also at the University at Buffalo on doing the urban spread. So first you have, in order to do, these fires, not different from the ones that were on the mainland, are driven primarily by wind, where the fire goes and how it goes. And so you need to have a very high resolution wind model of the calculation I'll show results of here on the right, was done with 100 meter by 100 meter by 100 meter resolution. Uh, it was this net NCAR, it's called WAR for Weather Research and Forecasting Code. It's run in various modes depending on what accuracy you need. We ran it where we're actually trying to resolve turbulence at some reasonable level. It's often referred to as large eddy simulations or LES mode of turbulence modeling. The calculation that I'll show you the movie on in a couple slides took 24 hours at one of their HP centers in Cheyenne, Wyoming, to produce basically a day worth of simulations. Uh, the calculation reproduces the very dramatic winds, gusts up to 80 miles an hour that were observed that day. And also, as I'll show you in a second, they were changing dramatically during the day. And that had a great effect on how the fire evolved and propagated during that terrible time. These cross sections basically are showing you in gray is the mountains that are to the east of Lahaina. The winds came down with the high velocities. And what the black line shows you where we think the fire started in this slice. The red line is called a hydraulic jump. It comes up a lot in water flow and wind flows. It's where there's a very transition here in the flow. And what's very important here is that it was changing dramatically during the day. Early in the morning, it was either uphill or even with the ignition point. But later in the afternoon, it actually moved almost offshore. And so that allowed the wind to go all the way to the coast. And that you'll see in the fire simulation how the wind actually made it almost right away, very quickly to the water. Then it pulled back, created now with a lot of turbulence was generated at this point, and it drove north-south winds. And you kind of see this in another view on the right. And the location of fire ignition point is shown here in all cases. So you can see that the dynamics of the wind was evolving a lot. What do we do? So now we take that wind data into another code called Swift. It was developed at the University of Berkeley. It accepts that wind data. It operates at a factor of 10 higher resolution, so it's now to 10 meter grids. The wind data was done with 100 meter. It time steps every 5 minutes. You put in all the structure that's in the town, including all its construction details. Um, whether it's made out of wood, whether it's concrete, what its roof is. You put all the vegetation, including vegetations between structures. Uh, you have initiation point, and then what you're doing here is that you have two classes of cells. Every cell is of one particular material, whatever the majority is. If it's mostly a structure, that whole cell is a structure. If it's mostly vegetation, the entire cell is vegetation. So we're not doing subzonal resolution. And so for cells that are igniting, there's this phase where they're developing, and then they're fully burning, in which case they can produce bran or like you think of flying embers. They also generate heat, and eventually they get burnt out. For example, the heat that's generated can come down and ignite structures if it reaches a critical point. Also, vegetation produces flying embers. Doesn't produce significant heat, so we're just worrying about flying embers from the vegetation. Likewise, it can cause propagation and continued a propagation of the fire. So this movie, I'll let it repeat as I kind of talk. And so you kind of see the ignition point coming up here. You saw very quickly it going all the way down to the shore. So it was very, very fast. And it burned here. It'll continue to burn until you'll see that it turns color once it's completely burned here in the legend. And it propagates southwards. This is where the marina was. This is the banyan tree down here. It's called Front Street. Lahaina has a lot of historic buildings, which were primarily wood, that contribute to this. There was a structure, kind of a blank space you see here. That region there was a mall with a lot of concrete parking and cement structures. And in the simulation, it was a quite effective fire block. There were some fires that propagated northward. Now it's repeating. But there's a region up here to the far north that was burned, that the model didn't get burnt because of this. It perceived this to be a very good fire block. Also, the simulation, as we run it out to the end again, you'll see there's a region up here to the east that was predicted to burn, which actually didn't. And so the process of, I'll show you in the next couple of slides, is to get additional information to understand why the model predicted some places to burn that didn't, and some regions that did burn that didn't burn. But the general behavior, timescales is remarkably good. As Alice mentioned, we have a website. Here's also a QR code if you can just scan it. That is getting information not only on where the fire was, but also on the wind data. As Alice already mentioned, there were some home stations. Actually, quite a few of the boats on the marina had their private little weather stations. But essentially, by the time the fire conditions were there and the wind was at the relevant time for us, those either were offline because they lost cell coverage, or no power, or they were actually, being destroyed for other reasons. And so we're using AI techniques with the data that we're collecting, both images and videos. For example, if somebody has a video that shows a roof blowing off to the west at a certain time at a certain location, we can infer the wind speed and directionality from that video data. So we're doing that both for the wind and for information on the fire, where the fire was, observations of what fire embers there were, and et cetera. And then one of the final answers we're trying to get from this is, this windstorm was very unusual. I've lived in Maui for 6 years, and I've never had anything winds like that. What we're trying to do is that we can take the same model, same wind, and expose it to new construction plans for Lahaina and see how the fire would behave and what type of mitigation and evacuation routes are needed. So given time, I'll go ahead and stop.
Thank you, David and Alice. We missed Alice's introduction, so I'm going to say that now. Dr. Alice Conagus is a graduate faculty in the Information and Computer Sciences at the University of Hawaii, and she serves as the computer scientist and research principal investigator for the Hawai'i Data Science Institute that's hosting the lightning talks today. Her PhD is also from Princeton in mathematical astrophysics. And thank you very much for sharing information about your rapid award. That was really insightful. Next up, I believe we have Dr. Monique Chaiba. Did I pronounce the last name correctly? She is in person in Kello Hall. I just want to make sure we're okay on the audio before we proceed. While we're setting up audio for that, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Monique. Dr. Monique Chaiba is a professor in the Department of Mathematics at the University of Hawaii. Her expertise is in optimal control with an emphasis on the singular, extremal, as well as in data modeling. And her work is applied to a variety of problems, including control of unmanned vehicles. And she'll be sharing the Rapid Award awarded to her team shortly.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we did hear that, but there was some echoing.
Test, test, yep. So Monique, if you speak, they should be able to hear it.
Yeah,
hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, that works. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry about that. We are figuring out the sound system. Oops. Let's see. I'm going the wrong direction. All right. Okay, so this project is not data science per se, but and we're not collecting data or analyzing data in the sense of the other project. It is a project that is in collaboration with the PI, which is Dr. O'Neill from the College of Education. Then Tom Blamey, he's here with us on Zoom at UH Maui, and with my colleague, Dr. Mileko from the Department of Mathematics. So the road to processing, recovery, and healing has very different time scale because there is a lot of healing to be done at different stages and different aspects of it, and it's both short and long term. And this project, as educator, we felt very concerned with trying to find a way to preserve the educational system on Maui as they were going through the trauma. And because this traumatic fire came after 3 years of pandemic that already destabilized a lot the educational system in the whole world, but on Maui. And like the Hawaiian Island have seen during the pandemic a real sharp increase in chronic absenteeism rate. It's a little better, but when you combine that with a tragedy like the fire, then you can really have a storm of on the educational system. So we are using trauma-informed teaching, which is one of the expertise of Dr. O'Neill from the College of Education. And here the 5 principal guideline of that are safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment. And it's really about understanding the emotional and physical safety of the students. Are they going through the trauma that they had? So because the trauma can really disrupt the well-being of the child in short term and long term in different way. Long term, we can then see problem of concentration, focus, and sort of social interaction. So it's really the idea to take that into account as we try to help them. So this is a little bit of a snapshot of the schools on Maui. And it's easy to think that we have to focus on the school that are in Lahaina. However, the entire island has been impacted, the entire school system, because students were displaced. They suddenly were going to other schools. The teacher had to adapt. Some of them are not back to school. Some are online. Some started a new school, and then they're back a little bit on Lahaina, where they have temporary school that were erected. So it does create a lot of hectic social interaction between the children as they moved around. The teacher have to welcome other kids in their classroom and then deal with that. So also some data in 2022, about 78% of Hawaii 8th graders scored below proficiency in math, 78%. Which was more than pre-pandemic. They improved a little bit over the past year, but there is still a lot to do. But this is to say that we started already in a difficult place, even before the pandemic and the fire. Here is the framework that we use. It was developed by Dr. O'Neill. It's STEM square. And STEM, you all know what it is, but here the S square has been added to mostly take into account the sense of place in those trauma-informed education practices and the social science to really root everything into the identity of the people that we work with. So you have also Makewolu, so that means 8 eyes. And the idea of this is the fact that you have to look at the problem from very different lenses, right? We are doing some intervention, and I will see, we've been going there every week, and we have been doing intervention mostly at a park that is just north of Lahaina, and you're on a park, you're outside, it's unstructured, you don't know which student are going to show up. A lot of people lost their car, so it's difficult for them to navigate anything. It's difficult to find where we should be, when we should be, with whom, what we should do. So that's what we have been trying to learn the first. But Makewolu says exactly that. You have to really use different approaches, different practices, depending on the environment where you are. And then you have Moholelo, and it is storytelling. And we are really trying to talk with the people and understand what they're going through. There is, during the first month, you went from basic needs that had to be fulfilled to now the realization that a lot of the children are not in school. So there is a lot of understanding of what, like, it's really difficult for us to understand what they're going through. So we're having a lot of talk story. We're spending a lot of time talking to the people over there. So the project phases, we're in phase 1, where it's really learning about the landscape. In a very obvious way, I went there and I was thinking, I'll go there. Everybody will want to work with us. We're bringing money, we're bringing resources. That's not how it works. That's my biggest lesson that I've learned. So learning the landscape is extremely important. Like building a network with the community and understanding how you can help is an extremely complex situation to navigate, especially after a traumatic experience like that. And that's great. I will come back to that in my closing remark. But so we have been learning, and I'll show some of the stuff that we've done in order to learn. But the phase 2 will be based on what we've learned. We can then design actionable intervention and with the community to understand what can work, what cannot work, and then eventually implement them and loop back to the beginning. You implement and you're like, okay, that does not really work, or that's very successful, so let's go with that. So here I just show a little bit what we've done during the fall. So again, we talked a lot with community members. Our first intervention happened at the Napoli Novo. It was a resource emergency center. Mostly, it's still over there. They wanted to build a school, a Hawaiian immersion school. It hasn't been there yet. They want to build a cultural center. It's still into the picture, but it's not yet. It was used mostly as a food distribution hub at the very beginning for the people that lost everything in Lahaina. So as they were coming there, the parents, they had to navigate the food, the clothes, try to get the stuff. So we were trying to work with the kids and providing them some educational support, some tutoring or whatever was needed at that time, so that then the parents were able to go and do for the basic needs. Then at first we were like thinking that we could have kids coming back on Saturday and work with us, and that also that's not easy. You know, there is a lot of things. There is sport, there is this, there is, and again, they have to attend for a lot of their basic need and situation. So we turned it more into math games and carnival theme, where they just come, they play with us, we do some math, we had activity, and we try to go back to the core concept. We're very concerned about the fact that they're going to lose the foundational work during all those years, and this is then, that means the whole are going to just percolate. And then it's really hard to fix at the college level or the high school level. That was December 16. We were playing over there with the kids, and Jack Johnson was there. That was their Christmas party. He was a math major, so he was very excited. He played with us, and then we had a little bit of a free concert at the end, and that was cool. Here is one of the students from UH Maui. She's a Hawaiian immersion teacher student. Now she graduated, she's working at the school. We're trying to implement an after-school program where she is. And here is Upward Bound. It is for a first-generation student. It's a program that is there in place. We've been working with them. That was an afternoon of graph theory. We told them about graph theory, and we had, I don't know, maybe 60 high school students from grade 9 to 11. We have also been working with 4 high school students from Maui High, and help them to design an experiment for a NASA project. They're waiting January 29 to know if they're selected to go into space. So we'll see if they are. That will be really exciting. And this is a little bit where we're going now that we have a little bit a better sense of the community and they start knowing us. We have some more direction that we might go. We are working with the Homeless Resource Center. We have Big Brother, Big Sister that are interested to have us come and help. We are also trying to reach out to the Lahaina student, high school student. They got a scholarship to come to here to Manoa, but the money is not all they need. They really need us to prepare them to come to Manoa in addition of the scholarship. So we're trying to navigate that. And then also what we do with everything that we have, this is like a reflection that we do after every intervention, every time we work with someone on Maui. We try to understand a little bit, trying to read the data, the trauma that we can see coming. It's not obvious. It might be a little thing here and there. So we're trying to understand and take collection of that data, so that we're going to conduct semi-structured interview with teachers, student, community, about understanding exactly how the trauma has been impacting them, where it is, and how we can help. So this is coming, but first we had, before going and working with the people, we had to meet them and develop everything. So this is Dr. Tara O'Neill is the PI on that, and I think the biggest lesson is what I said before, the complexity of navigating, constructing a network and helping after the fact is just not right. It's not the right way to go. Everything should have been in place before. And for me, it calls for the creation of an STEM outreach center here at the University of Hawaii that will be done in collaboration with different colleges, unit, the DOA, so that when something happens, you can activate, you can be there, the resources are done. We have a network of teachers that we can talk and we can be on site. And this work is not done during the disaster. All right.
Thank you very much, Monique. Next up, we have Dr. Chris Schuler. Dr. Chris Schuler is currently an affiliate researcher at the Water Resources Research Center at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He holds a PhD in geology and geophysics, and he specializes in hydrology. His current research is focused on ground and water surface resources in Hawaii and the American Samoa. Without further ado, I'll pass this over to Dr. Chris Schuler.
Thanks, Shivani. Hope everybody can hear me okay over there. Yeah, so I'll just share a little bit on the project that we put together after the Maui fires happened. So I work at UH Manoa with the Water Resources Research Center, but I'm based here in Haiku, Hawaii. And let me just see if I can screen share. I don't have a separate screen, so I will share this. And then I will push slideshow button. Can everybody see that okay? Okay, awesome. So we did get a rapid grant for this project, but this project is also funded by a couple of other different funding organizations. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And really the main focus is on community tap water sampling for contamination after wildfires. So I'll also have to apologize to everybody who's seen this before and those who have seen it this morning because I'm recycling the slides from our previous presentation. Just basic background is that wildfire smoke, melting pipes in houses, all of that plastic can actually create volatile organic compounds and contaminate drinking water systems. So we're talking about the pipes that actually feed municipal water to people's sinks, toilets, showers, things like that. And this project really started as like a community project, community-led, just being part of the community here. On August 8th, one of our friends and colleagues from Kula evacuated their house, came over to our place because Haiku, wasn't burning at the time. And from there, we were able to just see what was happening in Kula through kind of her network and all the social media that was going on. And so really just understanding what was happening, understanding things like going up to their house and seeing the water turned off on the 8th and going back on the 9th, and the water was on. And on the 9th, 10th, people were there. And then on the 11th, they received a notice from Maui Department of Water Supply that there were potential carcinogens in their drinking water. And so these people had been using their water for a day and a half and, understandably were really concerned. A lot of people freaked out and questions started coming in, emails, calls, and, we've just really recognized a deep need for immediate, validated, trustful information about water quality, as well as data, to get out during kind of that crisis situation. So we actually spun up a sampling program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But so as I said, these are some of the needs that kind of came up. We also realized, during the time, a lot of the folks on island just lost their jobs. So everybody in Lahaina, a lot of their jobs burned down. But even in Kula, like at the Kula Lodge, for example, there's 60 people that are employed there because of the unsafe water advisory. They were totally shut down. Tourism going downhill really reduced a lot of people's jobs. So we saw this huge need for training, workforce development, sort of, and people wanted to get involved with, response to the fires. So some of the things that we did connect with local and national experts, including the Department of Water Supply. So that's us having an all-day meeting with the Department of Water Supply, talking about these kinds of concerns. We spun up a sampling pipeline. So we essentially hired on some folks who, community members, as I was saying, that live in the burn areas to take water samples, be a part of the project. We're analyzing those water samples at our lab at UH Manoa for VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and semi-volatile organic compounds. And we pretty quickly put up a website to try and provide that information that people were reaching out to us about. So you can scan that QR code right there, or I will also put the link to the website in the chat here. You can see it. And that's where people can not only get information, but also request water samples, as well as see the data from the water samples that we've collected already. As I said, we actually hired on 3 people to do sampling. 2 of them are still working on sampling. One of them actually got a job doing phase 2 cleanup. And we've worked with a number of students and then collaborators at UH Maui College and at Manoa as well. So these are some kind of old numbers, but we've, essentially like reached out to directly and gone to the homes of and had conversations with over 300 community members about their tap water quality. And, I think it's been a pretty powerful thing for a lot of those folks and our team to see our work directly impacting people's lives on the ground. And as I mentioned, we have a couple of different funding agencies. So we did get funding from National Science Foundation to do the more scientific analytical aspects of this project. But also Ulupono Foundation through Hawaii Community Foundation funded this work as a project that was intended to create information and make a difference in the lives of community members here on Maui. We also got some funding from the University of Hawaii directly. And then finally, this is just a little kind of smattering of some of the community feedback that we've gotten. People have, really appreciated what we've done, from what they've shared with us at least. And our program is ongoing. We plan to continue doing this tap water sampling at people's homes for the rest of the project, through the rest of the year, and as much as we can possibly do it, until the need subsides. And we still are getting requests on a daily basis. That's all I've got to share. I'll take any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you very much, Chris. Next up, we have Dr. Saolong Liu Gang, who will be presenting on his Rapid Award. Dr. Gang is an assistant professor affiliated with the Water Resources Research Center and the Department of Earth Sciences at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Thank you, Dr. Gang.
I just shared my screen. Can you see it? Okay, so I will start. So first, thank you for organizing this great event and giving us opportunity to present our recent work on Maui wildfire. Our project is about understanding the immediate and long-term impacts of Maui wildfires on chemical and microbiological quality of nearshore beach and coastal waters. I'm Xiaolong Liu Geng, the PI of this project. I'm from Water Resources Research Center, WRC, and Earth Science Department. There's another PI of this project, Hao Yan, from WRC, and the Civil and the Environmental Engineering Department. We have collaborator Ruth Yander from NOAA Emergency Response Division. Basically, this rapid project has 2 components. The first component is field sampling for groundwater quality measurements, including chemical and microbiological analysis in the wildfire impacted beach region. Another component is groundwater modeling for predicting surface water groundwater interaction and exchange, as well as contaminant transport within the Lahaina beach environments. So this slide shows our study site and the field implementation. So our study site is located next to Kamehameha Iki Park. From the photo, you can see the area has been completely burned by wildfires. On the side, we set up an experimental transect that is perpendicular to the shoreline. Along the transect, we installed 4 piezometer wells equipped with CTD sensors to measure groundwater flow. We have continuously conducted groundwater sediment sampling for chemical and microbiological analysis for the site. So the goal is to develop a high-resolution model to trace groundwater and the contaminant transport within this region. We also conducted a drone survey for the site. Figure B shows the topography of our study site, and the figure C shows the topography, the beach topography along our train site. So we have piezometer monitor piezometer well 1, 2, 3, 4. We put PW 1, 2, 3, 4 to denote them, and the X marks at the bottom of the well represent the locations of the CTD sensors. So this slide shows our groundwater table measurements. Basically, we are observing significant fluctuation of groundwater table in response to tide. And based on the data we collected from field, we established a high-resolution groundwater model to simulate groundwater flow in this beach area. So this figure shows our simulated domain spanning from PW1 to PW4. Here shows the grid of the domain. The spatial resolution is about 5 centimeters. We use the groundwater table measurement from PW1 and 4 as our boundary conditions. Other parameters such as hydraulic conductivity, porosity were measured in our hydro lab. So this slide shows our preliminary modeling results. When I play this movie, you will see actually the black line represents groundwater table. The color contour represents water content within the beach. So this animation shows the fluctuation of groundwater table as well as so-called variably saturated conditions within the beach system. So based on our modeling results, we further quantify the groundwater flow in our studied beach. So the upper panel on this slide shows the magnitude of groundwater flow. So we are observing very higher magnitude of groundwater flow near the tidal line. Also, the groundwater surface water interaction generates a so-called groundwater recirculation cell in the beach. And also, in the lower panel, we characterized groundwater flow paths shown as streamlines. So this simulation helped us locate the groundwater recirculation cell, which is very important from the perspective of contaminant transport in those beaches. We also did a similar analysis of groundwater flow at the falling tidal stage. So the upper panel shows the magnitude of groundwater velocity. We simulated relatively low magnitude of groundwater flow at low tide. Also, the lower panel shows the groundwater flow path, and this helps us locate the groundwater discharge zone along the beach surface, along the beach. So that's pretty much what we have achieved right now for this project. On this slide, I summarized our upcoming tasks. So first will be modeling, calibration, and validation. Like I said, our modeling results are preliminary. So we are going to better characterize, calibrate, and validate our model to improve the model accuracy. We're also planning to introduce contaminant transport into our model so that we can better characterize the fate and transport of contaminants within those beach systems, including their pathways and persistence. We are also planning to install multi-port wells on the site so that we can collect it and measure groundwater samples at different depths. We will continue to collect and analyze water and sediment samples. We hope to deliver our lab analysis very soon. I would like also take a moment to thank the following people. We got tremendous support from Tom Gamble Luca, the director of WRC, as well as Gary Ito, the department chair of Earth Science. We also want to thank Chip Fletcher's team for the support of drone survey. Also, Ruth Yander from NOAA for the support of field access and the logistics. Also for Chris Schuller's team for the support of field implementation. Also Edward Lopez, my graduate student, for the support of for his dedication and hard work. So that's pretty much what I would like to present today. So thank you again for this great opportunity. I'm ready to pick up any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Gang. I think we do have a question in the chat. I'm not sure if it's directed to you or to Chris Schuler. From Jerry Isdale. His question is, does water quality testing extend to Olowalu temporary storage area and reef? That's the first question. And he has another question about if it can be extended to TDS area or used to inform separate such project. I think that might be a question for Chris. Chris, are you available to answer that question at the moment? Okay, we can pick up questions again towards the end of the talks. Thank you, Dr. Gang. Next up, we have Sean Swift from Craig Nelson's laboratory, as well as Joel Matos from Andrea Kealoha's laboratories. They'll be co-presenting the Rapid Award. It's my pleasure to introduce them. Sean Swift is a third-year PhD student in the marine biology program, working with Craig Nelson. And prior to working with that lab, he worked on fungi and other terrestrial microorganisms. And his PhD focus is on marine and aquatic systems. Joel Matos is focusing on how wildfire influences coastal ocean biogeochemistry, as well as examining potential stresses like eutrophication, coastal acidification, and hypoxia. Welcome, Joel and Sean. Thank you for presenting today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. The microphone's just on now. You can share it. Okay, great. Yeah, so we are presenting our RAPID project, which is about coral reef stress response to an urban fire, which is something that people have never really looked at before. It's kind of a unique situation that happened in Lahaina. So yeah, myself, Sean Swift, and Joel are presenting on behalf of this wider group at UH Manoa, which includes folks with different specialties. So Andrea Kealoha, who is Joel's advisor, focuses on reef metabolism. Nick Hako, who is in the room here, works on trace metals. My advisor, Craig Nelson, works on microbes and organic compounds, typically on coral reefs here in French Polynesia. And Eileen Nally is at Sea Grant and works on environmental contaminants and risk assessment. Besides Joel and I, there's also Justin Berg, who's a PhD student on this project, and a couple undergraduate students, Peter and Sky, helping out. So our project has a couple goals, two main hypotheses in this RAPID proposal that we put in. The first is that runoff of organic matter from Lahaina onto the reefs could stimulate microbial decomposition, which could affect a whole host of things, including decreasing reef pH and dissolved oxygen, which could drive reef metabolism towards net heterotrophy and carbonate dissolution, which are bad things for coral reefs. The other hypothesis is that nutrients and contaminant inputs could facilitate reef scale changes, kind of like a phase shift in microbial communities and chemical metabolites and metal cycling due to coral stress and enhanced algal growth, which would be another bad thing. And that could come from surface runoff or from just increased inputs from groundwater. There's a whole other group looking at groundwater inputs into water.
Okay, so there we have 20 sensors across 7 sites. 5 are within the burn zone area and 2 control sites, 1 above and 1 below. We're working with industry partners such as Seabird Scientific and CNSN Technologies for our CTD sensors, and as well as LOA Instruments for our tilt current meters. These sensors measure high temporal resolution, and some parameters we measure are temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, chlorophyll, and current speed and direction. And then our seabird sensors have relative pH and turbidity sensors as well. They have been deployed since November, and has collected data from the last 3 rainstorms. And then we're going to be taking them out in February. So we also deploy auto samplers at 2 coral reef sites, one at Mala Point, which is directly in the middle of the burn zone area, and one at Kahikili as our control. And we deploy them for 3 days, getting water samples every 3 hours. We're going to collect water samples for dissolved inorganic carbon and total alkalinity to assess the coral reef metabolism in response to the stressors associated from the fire. So with the data, we'll create a TADIC plot, which is a monitoring tool to compare organic metabolism of photosynthesis and respiration to inorganic metabolism of calcification and dissolution. And so far we've deployed it 3 times, one in October, which is as our control, and then one in December when there was that light rainstorm or minor rainstorm, and then in January, like a week or 2 ago, when there was a lot of rain, which was our major rainstorm.
So besides that, we also just do a lot of grab sampling. So this is kind of like traditional water quality sampling, you might imagine, with a couple things added on. So everything in this top box, this is all basically filling various bottles with water and running chemical analyses on those. So we look at nutrient concentrations, and we look at concentrations of various metals, thanks to Nick. And it seems like we're able to turn those around pretty quickly. We have preliminary data available from our first couple trips already. We're also going to be looking at dissolved inorganic carbon, dissolved organic carbon, organic compounds, which we'll do solid phase extraction and run on a GCMS or LCMS. We'll look at bacterial counts using flow cytometry, which can tell us something about the rates of, I don't know, heterotrophy on the reef, or if there's a lot of, there's a phytoplankton bloom or something like that. And then we also are going to sequence those bacterial communities using 16S DNA sequencing. Lastly, Eileen Nally, who's on the project and works at Sea Grant. So she is working with local fishers, and we're going to try and collect various fish, algae, and invertebrates in a collaboration with NOAA and get those tested for various contaminants to see if contaminants are moving up through the ecosystem. And we have also been collecting sediment, although we don't currently have funding to analyze those. If that was an interest of, say, the community, we could try to get those sent out to contract labs to do that kind of testing. And we've collected about 96 samples so far, and are just working our way through those. So I'll just show you some really quick preliminary data just on nutrients. And so this is the kind of thing we're trying to capture. So on the left, if you look at these points, nutrient concentrations are going to the right, higher to the right. The open circles, that's like a pre-rain event. So this was after the fire, but there's presumably not much runoff going into the water. And those are a bit lower than after this, the filled in points, which are after a minor rainstorm. So you can see nutrient concentrations going up a little. And these are all arrayed geographically. So this is the burn zone in Lahaina on the right. That's the bulk of our points. And then up at the far north, that's on a poly, that's a control site. And at the far south, Wallow is a control site. And what you see with nutrient concentrations is our control sites are just as high as any of the burn zone sites, at least for this minor rain event. So we did just go sampling when there was this huge brownwater event in the last couple of weeks. So we'll see what those data look like for nutrients and for metals too. Probably very interesting. So I think that's about all we have. We probably should do an acknowledgements page, but we have many, many people to thank. And we just wanted to give a brief overview for this talk. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think last but not least, we have Dr. Jason Lee presenting his Rapid Award. Dr. Jason Lee is director of the Hawai'i Data Science Institute and also the PI of the Change Hawaii Award.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay remotely? All good? Yes? Okay, fantastic. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, okay. So the title of my project is kind of long-winded, an evaluation of an artificial intelligence enhanced edge sensor system for multi-hazard monitoring and detection. So one of, apart from the natural causes for the fire, right? One of the things that became very apparent after this incident was just this lack of a detection system for Hawaii in general. And if you think about your homes, everybody probably has a smoke detector in our homes, and we don't even think about it. So is it possible to potentially put these equivalent of smoke detectors in all of Hawaii to potentially protect us from these incidents? Because we're not constantly looking out at the forest to make sure there's a fire or not. And in fact, other states in the United States are fire prone, like Los Angeles, Nevada. They already have these sensor networks deployed in the field for dealing with these situations, but also for conducting basic sciences at the same time. So there's double value in being able to build out these sensors. And so in this project, Tom Jambaluka, who's primarily the climate scientist, I'm just a computer scientist. I do computer type stuff. And collaborators, and also Chris Schuler, who just presented, and also one of our collaborators at Argonne National Lab, got together, and Tom builds the Mesonet for Hawaii, which is a sensor that measures humidity, temperature, rainfall, and so forth. But at the same time, the folks at Argonne have their own sensor, which can also measure the same things. But in addition to that, their design is slightly different, allowing them to attach a variety of different sensors to it to create customized sensor systems. So for example, the Argonne system allows us to also add top-bottom cameras, pan-tilt cameras, sound sensors, so you can listen to bird songs even, right? But what makes it kind of special is that within the sensor package is also a graphics processing unit, or GPU, right? If you're a video gamer, you love GPUs because that's what makes video games go fast. But as it turns out, GPUs are what makes artificial intelligence go fast, without which, whenever you're typing a question into ChatGPT, it's in fact a GPU hidden inside the company, that's doing all this work. And so what this allows us to do potentially is that traditionally, if a sensor gathers this data, it still has to ship it all to home base to process, and maybe some artificial intelligence there might say, oh, there's a disaster. And then it might send out the warnings. But if you put the GPU out in the field, look at the sensor data as it's captured, you're able to try and detect those things as soon as it sees something. It's like basically having humans out in the field all the time and looking, and then immediately start warning home base that something's up, you should really pay attention, and potentially even triangulate exactly where things are, and maybe point the cameras directly onto it, right? And some of you probably use ChatGPT, where you can type in questions about things. Imagine that the sensor, instead of sending you a blip, a number, it might send you a text output that says, there is a fire at this location, right? And then you can ask it more questions. Which direction is the fire going? And they can look at all the sensor data and then say, oh, it's going this way, right? So there's a lot of potential in this kind of technology. However, another piece of this is this. I mean, all this technology is somewhat researchy. And if you think about the smoke detector in your home, you stick it in there, you forget about it, you trust it 24/7 that it will work, right? And a lot of computing technology isn't always 100% reliable. So part of this project involves putting these sensors out there, testing them at very, aggressively with lots of, GPUs running AI algorithms intensely, and that'll tend to generate a lot of heat. Lahaina is also hot. There's also humidity issues, and those are evil things against making computers work well. So we want to evaluate that and see how reliable this tech is. And if it proves to be reliable or not, then we have the ability to advise local government that are intending to deploy these systems, what should they be looking for when they bid out, for example, to a company that starts building out these systems. So this picture I showed you was the Mesonet sensor. This one was the argon sensor. And all this data we're going to feed into our giant visualization dashboard running a piece of software called Sage that allows people to create arbitrary dashboards of information depending on their interests. Just as an example of the deployment, we haven't put the sensor yet in Lahaina, except for the Mesonet, which is on the right. This is the one in Lahaina. It's at the Board of Water Supply, which is like right here. We decided to put it here because it was sort of safe behind the gate. And at the time, we weren't sure where we could even put anything there, right? And so this picture is the deployment of this sensor out on the Big Island near the volcano. And this was a first trial of one of these sensors. And then, so later, as we get the new sensor, and this is what the package looks like, we're going to attach it to Tom Giampaluca's Mesonet, and then hope to start collecting data, and we'll go from there. And with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. On behalf of the Hawai'i Data Science Institute, I wanted to thank all the speakers today that presented on their Rapids Awards. We're going to open it up to questions. Feel free to post them in the chat or unmute yourselves, and feel free to ask the speaker directly as well. Thank you very much for all your presentations. That was really great to see the work that's going on to help Lahaina.
I just had a comment for Jason, which is that we check that Mesonet station all the time to see when we should go sample. So
good for you.
Excellent.
Excellent. We're gonna need your testimony. How great it is.
I'll happily do that.
Thank you.
But how fine a grid would you need for a system like that to be efficient? Yeah, like smoke detector, we put them in every room.
Right. So that's a good question, right? How many sensors we don't know? Yeah.
And so, sorry, I also heard that there's a plan to integrate that into some sort of database option, or is that?
Yeah. So all this data is going to go from the Mesonet to the Hawai'i Climate Data Portal. Okay. And then also Argon has its own portal as well. Okay. And then with Sage, you can actually put both portals side by side and look at all the data. So if you're interested in Sage, we can help you look at some of the dashboards and lay it all out. Cool. Yeah. So Jerry had a question. Could testing be extended to TDS area? What is TDS, Jerry?
I think that's a temporary disposal site that they're discussing. And all is currently one of our control sites, so maybe it will soon become not a control site.
Right.
I mean, I think once we have one deployed and we get some data out of that, I mean, we have the potential to move it to other sites. Or Tom may put more sensors out there as well. Yeah, we're also using Starlink for the transmission of the data from the sensor, because during the fire, basically the whole cellular network went down, right? And so, fortunately for satellites, they're immune to fire. They may crash into each other, and at least immune to fire.
So is there a power limit on those things? I mean, like, you just keep adding more and more sensors to it, or eventually do
it will take more power the more you add. You could, I mean, in this case, we're just going to plug it into the board power supply, but you could also equip it with battery systems as well as a solar panel to charge it up. And, you know, Lahaina would have ample solar.
Right.
Yeah. But then, you know, the ultimate goal is, you know, this is just a prototype. I think what we really need to do is start to shrink these packages, right, down to the scale of what a smoke detector might be. And I know for Chicago, for a long time, they have sound sensors in really bad neighborhoods. And what they would do is that whenever there's a gunshot, the microphones will pick it up and triangulate where it is. Because people don't know who to call, when they call in, they don't know where the thing is. So they use the microphones to essentially triangulate and say, oh, it's most likely in this neighborhood. Yeah. So you could do something very similar. You've got sound, you've got cameras.
You can add it as a preload solar panel that they have on houses.
Yeah, you could add, oh, that's a good idea. Put it in your house to monitor your own home too. Yeah. Oh. It started.
And you have the solar panel. It's already
the solar panel. Yeah.
So you can take the energy from it.
Oh, yeah, store it. Let's do that. Make you our CEO.
Do you want everybody to sign in on this, or is this just for?
Oh yeah, that's for me. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I guess we're done.